Hey folks, this is Colin Richards, president and founder of Lord and Richards, and we're a team of advisors helping people just like you every single day to achieve financial independence so that you can retire without worry. And today we're going to begin with a little study from the book of Proverbs, as we always do. Proverbs 13:22 says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous." Very interesting proverb, a little couplet here that contrasts two types of people, the good man and the sinner. Now, we all know that we sin, but we're talking about a person whose life is reflective of a desire to please God versus a person whose life is reflective of a desire to please self. As someone has wisely said, just two choices on the shelf, pleasing God and pleasing self. But do you notice that this man is a multi-generational gifter? It says his children's children, right? Not just his kids, but his grandkids. And really the idea isn't that it stops there, but that this person has set things up in such a way that multiple generations will benefit from the prosperity and the blessings that God has given this man. Now, of course, he's called a good man, or I would say it's just as likely to be in our day and age when women control more than half the wealth on planet Earth, a good woman. Okay, so a good person has a multi-generational wealth strategy. Now, I know what you're saying to yourself. You say, I've helped my kids along. If you've been blessed with children, maybe you helped them with college or you taught them how to make a good living, and maybe they're doing all right for themselves. Well, what we're really talking about is having a life that points the next generation in the right direction, because there's an inheritance that is so much more than money, right? How about a good name? The Bible also says that a good name is more than great riches. How about your values, right? To have the kind of influence on multiple generations because of the values, the beliefs, your godly testimony. And then, of course, even if we're not in a position to leave a bank account of wealth to the next generation, an inheritance, most of us are going to transfer property, right? If you own a home, unless that home is consumed by the government's needs or nursing homes or hospitals, you'll be able to pass that on to the next generation. And in today's environment, today's laws, we have an exception on homes and property that are taxed at capital gains rates. They receive what's called a step up in basis. That means when you transfer them to the next generation, they don't have to pay tax on the appreciation of that asset over your lifetime. Some people call these kinds of things loopholes, and I don't like that term, because a loophole is generally something either maliciously or just absent-mindedly in a law designed to let people slip through what the law's intent was. But these are codes deliberately designed to encourage people to own homes, to invest in businesses, to really participate in the American dream. So it's not a loophole to get a capital gains step up in basis on the end of life. Now, bear in mind that that is in jeopardy. It is in jeopardy. So there are some other tips and tricks we'll have for you in subsequent sections on whether or not you need an estate plan and how to build one. Okay, so be sure to tune into those additional episodes. But here, the Bible is specifically commending the person who leaves behind wealth, inheritance, or possessions to the next multiple generations, children, grandchildren, and we could go on. Now, to do this, if you really want to take up this proverb and make it a part of your life, it's going to require a lot of biblical instruction to your kids and to your grandkids, however many generations are alive before you pass, so that they learn about the wise use of money. Because some people will tell me, well, my kids are doing great. They're doing better than I am. Well, the point is, what have you done to position resources to do the maximum good in your lifetime and to continue to do so after you're gone? I know for our family, we decided years ago that our business was designed to fund the work of missions. And most of you who've listened to the show or been into our offices know that Lord and Richards, the company, funds mission work all over the world, right? So we're involved in Myanmar, having established multiple churches. 4 churches were established just in the last 60 days of this recording. And they were done in areas where people have never been reached. And so to set up something like that is wonderful, both the business as well as the foundation that receives and distributes those funds so that my children and their children can participate for generations to come. So it also requires you to structure things so that this will happen, right? You have to develop a plan to put in place structure, okay? Now, you're really going to want to teach your children about the necessity and power of giving in the life of a believer. As kingdom citizens, it's not that God has simply given us things to enjoy and consume for ourselves, but He's given us things richly so that we can also give richly, so that we can be a blessing to others, so that we can meet the needs of others. That's one of the reasons why our foundation focuses on some of the most unreached people on earth, some of the poorest people on earth, people often who have no educational opportunities, no written language, no clean water, no type of spiritual opportunities, demon worshipers, and so on. So it will require you to build both an education in your children and grandchildren and also a structure so this can happen. Now you might say, well, a foundation, that sounds like something the wealthy would do. Well, I'm going to explain in subsequent sessions, particularly the one on how to create an estate plan, how you can build something that really isn't very complicated and doesn't demand a lot of extra time. Now, additionally, the verse has a second half that describes kind of the opposite kind of person, calls this person a sinner. And by default, we assume this person could care less about teaching the next generation how to give or putting resources into the hands of the next generations that will aid and benefit God's kingdom. So this kind of person transfers their wealth, it says, from themselves to the righteous. It goes from sinners to the righteous. You say, well, I don't see this all the time. You know, it looks like I can name off some pretty wealthy, prosperous sinners. And the psalmist David says, look, don't worry about it in this life, because eventually, whether you get to see it or not in this life, in God's economy, those who squander wealth or who use it for sinful gain will ultimately leave it behind to others who are more righteous than they are. And then ultimately, we're going to see that realized in the kingdom of God when Jesus Christ brings His righteous rule on this earth and distributes eternal reward. So a good man leaves an inheritance to multiple generations, and the sinner, well, he leaves his wealth to others who are better than him. You say, well, Colin, this does open the subject of developing a plan. I'm not sure I've got one that helps me to fulfill the principles of this verse. Well, I'm glad you asked, because at Lord & Richards, my team and I of advisors are helping people every day just like you to not only achieve financial independence, but to build a comprehensive plan to make sure you keep it so that you can retire without worry, so that you can take the assets, the benefits, and the blessings that God put into your hand and be a blessing to others. It just starts with a conversation. I'd be delighted to talk to you. I'd be delighted to visit with you and learn more about your situation and help you achieve financial independence. It really just starts with a phone call.